The first thing Sub-Commander Veth of the Krathian Dominion learned about humans was that they bled red. This was in the intelligence files. Standard pre-invasion briefing material, the kind of dry, catalogued data that Veth had read 100 times about 100 different species across the 14 worlds the Dominion had brought to heel in the past 2 centuries. Bipedal, warm-blooded, oxygen-breathing, approximate combat lifespan once engaged, short. The files said humans were fragile things, soft-skinned, no natural armor, no venom, no enhanced musculature, no echolocation, no infrared vision, no pheromone-based communication. Compared to even the weakest species the Dominion had previously conquered, the Ya of the Dust Belt, who at least had reinforced skeletal structures, or the Farron, who could survive 3 times the atmospheric pressure a human could tolerate. Humans were, on paper, almost embarrassingly easy to kill. Veth had read this file. Veth had believed this file. Veth was on his 4th antacid tablet of the morning, staring at a tactical display that was doing things tactical displays were not supposed to do, and thinking very hard about who had written that file and whether they had actually visited the planet or simply made educated guesses from orbit. Sub-Commander. His tactical adjutant, Pre, appeared at his elbow with the expression of someone delivering news that they personally did not want to be responsible for. The 3rd compression unit is requesting extraction. From which position? Pre consulted her data slate with unnecessary thoroughness. All of them, Sub-Commander. Veth turned slowly from the tactical display. All of their positions. Yes, Sub-Commander. They are requesting extraction from every position they currently hold. That is correct. Veth looked back at the display. The 3rd compression unit was 2,000 soldiers, the finest ground assault force the Krathian Dominion had deployed on this continent. Veterans of the Yal campaign and the pacification of the Farron border worlds. They had landed 6 days ago in the territory the humans called the American Midwest, with explicit orders to secure the agricultural zones, neutralize local resistance, and establish forward staging positions for the next phase of the invasion. 6 days ago, the 3rd compression unit had been a proud and fearsome instrument of Dominion will. The 3rd compression unit was currently requesting extraction from every position it held. Why, Veth said very carefully, are they requesting extraction? Pre's mouth did a complicated thing. The official report, she said, cites psychological destabilization of combat personnel, sir. Specifically, she glanced at the slate again, as though hoping the words had changed since the last time she looked. Specifically, they report inability to maintain unit cohesion due to sustained exposure to what they are classifying as a non-standard psychological weapon. Veth waited. The humans, Pre said, keep laughing at them. The command deck was very quiet. Say that again, Veth said. It had started on the 2nd day. Sub-Commander Veth reviewed the footage later, many times, trying to understand the moment it began. The 3rd compression unit had moved through a small human settlement, the kind of place the human maps called a town. Low buildings and wide roads and the particular smell of cut vegetation that seemed to follow humans everywhere. And they had met resistance, because there was always resistance in the early days. It was expected. It was factored into the operational planning. What was not factored into the operational planning was Sergeant Dale Pruitt of the Iowa National Guard, a man built like a farmhouse and possessed of a laugh that his fellow soldiers had once described in a review submitted to the Guard's unit newsletter under the heading, People we are glad are on our side, as sounding like a gravel truck falling down a staircase. Sergeant Pruitt had been pinned behind an overturned grain truck on the edge of a field, exchanging fire with the Krathian patrol when one of the Krathian soldiers had attempted to use an agricultural combine harvester as cover and had gotten his armor caught in the harvester's intake mechanism. The harvester had not turned on. The Krathian soldier was not injured. He was, however, completely stuck, hanging at an angle from the machine with his legs cycling uselessly in the air like an upturned beetle, while his unit mates attempted to extract him, and the whole operation devolved into 3 armored alien soldiers, trying to figure out the release mechanism of a piece of farm equipment they had never seen before. Sergeant Pruitt had watched this for approximately 4 seconds. Then he had started laughing. Not a polite chuckle, not a nervous release of tension. A full, massive, delighted, rolling laugh that went on for a genuinely unreasonable amount of time. That filled the air around the grain truck and carried across the field and reached the audio sensors of the Krathian patrol with a clarity that the Dominion's intelligence division would later describe in a classified report as deeply confusing and somehow threatening. The Krathian soldiers had stopped trying to free their comrade. They had looked toward the sound. They had exchanged glances with each other. None of them had an intelligence file that covered this contingency. Their species, the Krathi, communicated distress through a high-pitched tonal signal and communicated satisfaction through a low resonant hum. The sound coming from behind the grain truck matched neither of these. It was large and loud and rhythmic, and it conveyed somehow through channels that the Krathian soldiers could not identify and therefore could not defend against, a complete absence of fear. Private Diaz, crouching next to Pruitt behind the truck, had caught the laugh like a cold. Then Private Yamamoto. Then Corporal Reese, who tried hard not to and failed completely. Within 40 seconds, everyone behind the grain truck was laughing, even the ones who were frightened, especially the ones who were frightened, because Sergeant Pruitt's laugh was the kind of sound that reached into your chest and pulled the fear out of it and showed you that whatever was happening, it was also at some level funny. It was always at some level funny. 3 aliens stuck to a combine harvester. The universe was strange and enormous and terrifying, and also, right now, in this moment, completely ridiculous. The Krathian patrol disengaged. Later, under questioning from their own intelligence officers, 2 of them reported that the sound had made them feel as though they were being observed, as though something vast and knowing was watching them and had found them absurd. They had found this feeling intolerable. This was the first incident. It was not the last. Veth pulled up the incident log and read it from the beginning, which took the better part of 2 hours, and left him feeling like he had developed a headache in a part of his skull he hadn't previously known existed. Day 2, 3rd Platoon, the 7th Ground Unit reported that a group of human defenders had interrupted a tactical advance by beginning to sing, not a battle hymn, a song about a man who had lost his truck and his dog and his wife in sequential verses, which the human soldiers had apparently found so appropriate to the current situation. They were, at the time, defending a vehicle depot, that they sang it at full volume while maintaining fire. 3 Krathian soldiers had stopped shooting to process what they were hearing. 2 of those 3 had been shot. Day 3. A Krathian suppression team had moved into a human settlement to neutralize a sniper position. only to discover that the sniper was an elderly human woman in a second-floor window who was not, in fact, a sniper, but who had been throwing tomatoes at Krathian soldiers with impressive accuracy and great apparent pleasure. When the suppression team entered her building, she had looked at them with an expression their report described as entirely unafraid and somewhat contemptuous, said something in the human language that the translation unit rendered as "took you long enough," and offered them what appeared to be a preserved fruit product. 3 members of the suppression team had spent 4 minutes standing in her kitchen trying to determine whether this was a threat. 1 had accepted the fruit product. The incident had delayed the operation by 20 minutes. The elderly woman had been relocated to a secure area from which she had escaped twice in the following 48 hours, both times being found in the facility's food preparation area, making what the guards described as a suspicious amount of soup. Day 4. An entire Krathian infantry column had ground to a halt because the road ahead was blocked by a human driving a riding lawn mower in the center of the highway at its maximum speed of approximately 14 kilometers per hour. The human was wearing a large hat. He was also, the scouts reported, laughing. Just laughing by himself at the wheel of his small, loud machine, blocking 240 Krathian soldiers, seemingly aware of exactly what he was doing and finding it the best thing that had happened to him in years. It had taken 22 minutes to resolve the situation because 4 separate soldiers had been ordered to move the human and his vehicle, and all 4 had, upon approaching him and encountering the laugh and the hat and the complete absence of fear, experienced what the medical report later classified as acute disorientation. The 5th soldier had simply picked up the lawn mower and moved it to the side of the road, whereupon the human had waved cheerfully, reversed back into the road, and started again. He had been doing it for 6 hours before they arrived. He appeared to have no intention of stopping. He was eventually removed from the situation by 3 soldiers working in concert, at which point he told them through the translation unit that he had been hoping they'd come because he'd been out here long enough and his wife had lunch ready. Day 5. A Krathian command post had been established in a human building that the maps identified as a place of communal food consumption, a restaurant. During a tactical briefing, a group of human prisoners being held in the back of the building had begun laughing at something. No one had been able to identify what. They were not doing anything. They were simply sitting together, and then one of them had said something, and then all of them were laughing, and the laughter had come through the walls and interrupted the briefing, and Commander Drath of the 3rd Compression Unit had sent 4 soldiers to quiet them down. The soldiers had entered the room, observed the prisoners laughing, been unable to identify a tactical reason for the laughter, and returned to the briefing room noticeably subdued. When Commander Drath had demanded to know why the laughter was still audible, the senior soldier had said, in a tone that Drath found deeply troubling, "They won't stop, Commander." "I don't think they can." Day 6. Commander Drath had issued Order 7, which was the order that Veth was now reading with the particular feeling of a military officer, reviewing a decision made by someone who had clearly run out of better options. Order 7 banned laughter. It banned laughter in all prisoner-holding areas, in all occupied settlements, in all zones of Krathian military operation. It prescribed immediate disciplinary action for any human found laughing in the presence of Krathian military personnel. It was clear, it was firm. It was an order from a commander of the Dominion's finest ground assault force. The humans had laughed at Order 7, not metaphorically. The translation of Order 7 had spread through the human prisoner population within hours, passed from person to person the way their information always spread, fast, horizontal, unstoppable, and the response uniformly had been laughter. Then the order had spread beyond the prisoner population, through whatever communication channels the humans were using that the Dominion had not yet fully suppressed, and across the occupied territories humans had laughed. And then the order had reached the unoccupied territories, the human military command, the civilian population centers beyond the front lines, and the laughter there had been so sustained and so widespread that when the Dominion listening stations tried to monitor human radio communications, they got 40 minutes of barely interrupted audio of humans laughing before anyone managed to get a coherent tactical transmission through. Commander Drath had responded to this by adding penalties to Order 7. This had also been laughed at. On the morning of Day 7, Commander Drath had woken up, read the overnight incident reports, issued a request for full extraction of all 3rd Compression Unit forces, cited psychological weapon deployment by indigenous forces, and then sat very quietly in his command chair for a long time, staring at nothing. Veth finished reading the log. He sat back. He thought, with painful clarity, about the intelligence file, the one that said humans were fragile things. Veth slowly closed the report and stared at the tactical display. For the first time since the invasion began, he understood one terrifying truth. The Dominion hadn't encountered a stronger army. It had encountered a species that refused to surrender its spirit. But what Veth didn't know was that humanity was only getting started. Across the front lines, Captain Yolanda Chun was preparing an operation so bizarre, so impossible, that it would force the entire Dominion High Command to question everything they believed about war. And after what happened next, the alien empire would never look at humans the same way again. ***, to be continued in Part 2, ***.